There are moments when words fail, but presence speaks louder than anything. What if you could walk into a room and instantly command respect, shift the energy, and influence outcomes without saying a single word? Imagine stepping into a space where your very existence makes an impact, where the mere act of being present carries more weight than any spoken argument. Inspired by the timeless wisdom of Nietzsche, this video reveals how mastering your inner world can give you a silent power that outsmarts anyone around you. If you're tired of feeling overlooked, manipulated, or misunderstood, if you've ever walked away from a situation thinking, "I should have handled that better," this is for you. You'll learn how to radiate confidence, sharpen your intuition, and tap into your higher self to navigate relationships, challenges, and even enemies with calm, quiet precision. This goes beyond mindset, it's spiritual strategy. It's about cultivating a presence that transcends words and becomes your most powerful tool. In a world where everyone seems to shout for attention, the quiet individual commands respect not by their volume, but by their stillness. There is a kind of strength that doesn't rush, doesn't react, doesn't need to be seen. Nietzsche understood that true power often lies not in action, but in restraint. In a world addicted to immediacy, where reaction is mistaken for relevance, the individual who pauses, who watches instead of responding, creates tension without lifting a finger. He believed the superior individual resists the pull of impulse. Instead of dancing to chaos, he imposes stillness, choosing his moment with precision, or choosing no moment at all. Like a seasoned fighter who wins without throwing a punch, he lets the other tire themselves out, flailing into silence. Because silence, when chosen, becomes a weapon. Not acting is not weakness. It's control. It's the awareness that not every moment deserves your energy, not every battle is worthy of your presence. To withhold is to lead. To observe is to dominate. And sometimes, the most powerful move is no move at all. Silence doesn't need to justify itself, it simply is. In this quiet, the observer holds all the cards, waiting until the moment to make their move, if at all. And when the time comes, it is not a chaotic charge, but a precise, calculated action that tips the balance. Silence draws attention not because it's loud, but because it leaves space the mind can't resist filling. Nietzsche understood that mystery isn't crafted by adding layers, but by removing explanations. The less you reveal, the more others project. And in that projection, you grow larger, deeper, more dangerous than you may actually be. Humans fear the unknown, but they also respect it. When someone holds their tongue, stands still, watches quietly, our minds rush to define them, and in that rush, we elevate them. Presence, then, is not noise, it's gravity. It's not how much you say, but how much space your silence occupies. Think of the ones who walk into a room and change the atmosphere without saying a word. Their energy precedes them. Their stillness speaks louder than volume ever could. Thomas Shelby, Musashi. Men who say little, but say everything with how they exist. Their mystery isn't performance, it's precision. They withhold, not to manipulate, but to preserve their power. To be mysterious is not to hide, it's to choose. To reveal only what strengthens the silence. And in that silence, you become unforgettable. Even in silence, your body speaks. Nietzsche didn't separate thought from flesh. To him, the body was not just a vessel, but a reflection of will, a mirror of the inner self. How you stand, how your eyes rest, the stillness of your hands, these are philosophies in motion, declarations made without a word. A slouched back whispers insecurity, eyes that dart reveal uncertainty, but true presence is quiet, slow, deliberate, anchored. Confidence is not loud, it is in the calm, in the space you occupy. A glance can command, a breath can disarm, and stillness becomes the center of any storm. Your body speaks constantly, not with words, but with space, telling others how to treat you, whether or not you speak. You don't need to explain yourself when your posture already says, "I know who I am, I know why I'm here, and I don't need your validation to remain steady." This is the unspoken language of presence, a language Nietzsche understood, written not in books, but etched in every movement, in the quiet strength of simply being. Every step you take, every pause, every gesture has meaning. It says more than any verbal affirmation ever could. There is a power in solitude that many overlook, a strength that grows in silence, away from the noise of the world. Nietzsche often sought isolation, not as a retreat, but as a space to sharpen his mind, to grow without distraction, without the expectations of others. In isolation, there is clarity. When you step away from the chaos, you hear your own thoughts more clearly, and with that clarity, you become less influenced by the noise around you. The voluntary exile is not punishment, it is liberation. When you remove yourself from the world's demands, you begin to realize the power of your own presence. You grow stronger not in the world's eyes, but in your own. Consider the monk who retreats to the mountains to meditate. When he returns, he is not the same man. He has been reshaped by his solitude. His mind, now clearer, his presence, now stronger, commands attention without uttering a word. When you withdraw, you become more than you were before. You emerge not weaker, but with the quiet power of someone who has learned to be alone with themselves. Isolation is not about running away. It is about finding strength in stillness and returning to the world with a presence that cannot be ignored. In every interaction, there is a silent battle for dominance. The one who can control their own ego controls the room. When you don't react, when you don't rise to provocation, you take the power away from the other person. Most people's egos are fragile. They need validation. They need to be seen, heard, acknowledged. But when you are unshaken, when your own sense of self is steady, their need for control becomes evident. In a heated moment, when the other's emotions rise, the one who remains calm becomes the force that redefines the situation. Their ego falters, unable to provoke a reaction. Think of a conversation where one person shouts, and the other remains silent, listening. The one who shouts is already losing, for their energy is being spent on something that doesn't return. It simply dissipates into the stillness of the other. This is how you master the ego of another, not by fighting it, but by ignoring it. The power lies not in defeating, but in remaining grounded, unshaken, and unbothered. When you control your own ego, you hold the power to shape the space around you. And in that silence, you win, not by engaging in the battle, but by never stepping into it. It's not about proving your strength, it's about maintaining your peace. In this stillness, you create a space where others feel drawn to your centered energy. Without saying a word, you hold the key to the room. Philosophy isn't something you talk about, it's something you live. Nietzsche understood this deeply. To live by your own values, to let your actions speak louder than your words, this is true philosophy. In a world that demands explanations, true philosophy remains silent. It doesn't need to convince anyone, it simply exists. The way you live, the choices you make, the way you move through the world, this is the truest form of philosophy. We spend so much time explaining ourselves, justifying our choices, trying to make others understand. But the most powerful philosophy is lived in silence, in the quiet confidence that you don't need approval. You don't need a crowd of followers or an audience. Your life, your actions, are the only proof you need. To live according to your own principles is to preach without words. Your life becomes an example, an embodiment of thought in motion. You don't need to argue your beliefs, because your every action confirms them. And in that quiet strength, you attract those who understand, those who are drawn not to your words, but to the philosophy that breathes through you, in the spaces between your actions, in the stillness that surrounds you. In an age of constant noise, where every moment demands a reaction, stillness becomes an act of defiance. To refuse the pull of the crowd, to remain unmoved amidst chaos, is rebellion itself. Nietzsche spoke of the herd, the collective that follows without thought, swept up in trends and distractions. To refuse participation is to resist the tide. To stand still is to say, I choose my own rhythm. Stillness is not passive, it is strength. It is the quiet force of someone who knows they do not need to be swept into the world's frenzy. They understand the power of being rooted, unaffected by the clamor around them. To remain silent when the world demands your voice, to hold your ground when everyone else is running, is an act of defiance against the superficial, the fleeting, the ungrounded. In stillness, you reclaim your power. You decide when to speak, when to act, when to remain silent, and in that choice, you defy the world's demand for constant noise. In a world where connection is measured by likes, comments, and the constant pull to be seen, the true nature of connection often gets lost. We're told to be loud, to be everywhere, to share every thought and moment, yet real connection thrives in the spaces between words, in the silence that often goes unnoticed. In a time when everyone is speaking, silence can be the most profound way to connect, not by responding, but by truly listening. The challenge is this: for the next 24 hours, when someone provokes you, when the world demands your validation, practice silence. Don't react, don't seek approval, simply remain grounded in your own presence. In this silence, you'll find a deeper connection, not to others, but to yourself, to your own inner strength. As you resist the urge to fill the void with words, you'll realize that true power lies not in what you say, but in the quiet, deliberate choice to remain still, to observe, to let your presence speak for you. And perhaps the most surprising realization of all is this: the quieter you become, the more you hear, not just others, but yourself. Beneath the noise of the world, your intuition sharpens. What was once cloudy becomes clear. You begin to recognize patterns, sense intentions, and move through life with a heightened awareness that words often fail to articulate. It's not mystical, it's practical. Stillness opens the senses. Silence sharpens perception. In this quiet space, you no longer just react to life, you begin to read it. That's when the world starts to shift around you. People notice your change without knowing why. They feel your presence, sense your calm, and instinctively adjust. You become the mirror that shows others their own chaos. And in that reflection, you become the influence, not by effort, but by essence. This is how you lead from within. Not through orders or arguments, but through being. Through the quiet conviction of someone who doesn't need to raise their voice to be heard. The journey toward this kind of presence isn't always easy. It requires discipline, self-reflection, and a willingness to be misunderstood. But in that misunderstood silence, greatness grows. You stop living to explain. You start living to embody. Every interaction becomes intentional. Every moment becomes meaningful. You stop chasing impact and start radiating it. Even in conflict, you remain grounded, not because you lack fire, but because you've learned when to burn and when to warm. There's wisdom in withholding, power in the pause. You no longer play every card. You no longer rush to prove your point. You let others spend their energy while you conserve yours, observing quietly, striking only when the moment is right, and with far more impact. Over time, you'll begin to notice how much energy you save. You won't feel drained by interactions that used to exhaust you. You won't fall into the same emotional traps. You'll walk away from conversations not with regret, but with clarity. Because in silence, you gave yourself the space to choose, rather than be pulled. And that's the true essence of power. Choice rooted in awareness, not reaction rooted in emotion. This kind of strength doesn't scream, it doesn't even announce itself. It simply is. Like gravity, it doesn't need to prove its presence, it's felt. It's in your walk, your gaze, your patience. It's in the pauses between your words, the moments you choose not to engage, and the calm that follows you wherever you go. This is the kind of presence that transforms rooms, disarms hostility, and earns respect without ever demanding it. So the next time the world pulls at you, asking for more noise, more reaction, more attention, remember this: your silence might be your loudest answer. Your stillness might be your strongest statement. And your presence, when truly mastered, is more than enough. And in that choice, you'll experience a connection far beyond the superficial, a connection that transcends words and touches something deeper. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss out on future reflections like these. Remember, true power often lies in the silence we choose. Stay grounded, stay present.